Okay, so 4:33, I'm going to call the meeting to order for the Policy and Personnel Committee. If we want to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. That's funny. Okay, so after roll call, I just want to check public comment. You guys said that you had nothing on the public comment book. Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped roll call. Myself, Angie Schreiber is here, as is Catherine Solon. Other committee or other board members present are Dave and Andy Mary.
I'm here as ex facto for Danny.
Gotcha. And item A on the agenda is policy 7440.1, video surveillance and electronic monitoring regarding cameras in lab areas. And whom is the pleasure of addressing that?
I asked Mr. Rogers to be here.
Okay.
To speak to it because it's specifically impacting the high school.
Gotcha.
Yep, and I shared a copy of our policy along with some items that we would like struck and added to that policy. And really the nuts and bolts of it is that we have some cameras in some lab areas right now that is extremely helpful for student safety and classroom management pieces that for any kind of discipline purposes or equipment vandalism or anything like that that would occur in those lab areas, that we really want to maintain those cameras in those areas. We took a look at some other policies and took language from some other policies, a couple different ones, and then used some of that verbiage. So whatever is highlighted in that document that is shared with you are the things that we would like added.
There's nothing highlighted. We just have
Yeah, I
a
don't
plain-
see a strike through or a
Yeah.
highlight.
It's just a,
Okay,
yeah, this is just what we have.
so that is
The
the
policy.
policy, the document.
Okay.
I shared with you via Google Docs
Oh,
a
Oh, okay.
version that
has the,
has the language in there.
Oh, yes, okay.
you're gonna share with me? That's fine.
Yes, please.
So that's in an email, I would guess?
It should look like that.
Right, but it would have came in an
It would have
email,
come
right?
in an email, yeah,
Today,
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, 4:33.
At the start of this meeting.
Yeah.
That's okay.
And that, but basically, what that language does, like I said, is it allows us to continue to have those cameras in those areas, such as our metal shop, our wood shop, our fab lab, graphics, our art room, all of those areas have some cameras in there, and that was brought as an area of concern because our current policy said that we could not have them in classrooms.
So, question, buildings with surveillance cameras will post signs at all main entrances saying that the video surveillance cameras are in use, but are not continuously monitored. Are you recording video or audio as well?
No.
Okay.
So in all of the cameras inside the building, audio is not recorded. On the buses, it is recorded.
Okay.
And again, those aren't, like, nobody's sitting there watching them,
Right.
both
But in
here
case there was an
and,
incident, yeah.
and on the buses. But when we have issues on the bus, then we request those from the bus company and they send us over a little link to it and we're able to get on and observe.
Okay. I just wanted to ask that because law, you have to say that you're recording the audio too. That's what you're doing. So that's why I asked.
So just to be clear one more time, is that the language that you're adding
Highlighted.
is highlighted, but essentially giving permission to place cameras in the classroom where they're not currently, or maintain cameras?
We currently have a camera system in those
Okay.
areas, in the areas that I described.
Okay,
But there has been some discussion on whether that is a classroom or is it a lab area. And if it is considered a classroom, then we wouldn't be able to have cameras in there.
I have a question. In definitions, does it define the difference between classroom and lab? Or is it a blanket of any location within the building would be considered?
In like our policy definitions, I don't know the answer to that.
but again, it says cameras shall be located in public areas where individuals have no expectations of privacy, including but not limited to hallways, classrooms, labs, shops. So were we not okay to have them in the classroom before, or are we,
This was brought as an area of contention last year.
okay?
And
Can you just explain why it was last year? What was the area of contention? Because the policy says no
That-
cameras in classrooms?
correct,
Okay.
correct.
Okay, so again, then this language would allow us to put cameras in classrooms regardless if it's a classroom, a lab, a
Correct.
study hall area,
Correct.
anywhere, basically.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, it does indicate, if you scroll to the last page, surveillance cameras may be used in all areas under the supervision of the Antigo, as well as school buses under the supervision of the school district where the expectation of privacy is vacant. So, locker rooms, restrooms, use of surveillance cameras in classrooms, labs, and shops shall be limited and must be communicated with the individual instructors and teachers using the space, and establishment of reasonable need should be addressed through administration before cameras are installed in or used in the space. So, like if we wanted to put a camera in Miss Galehausen's room, which is right across the way, there has to be a reasonable need for that camera to be there. I mean, she doesn't have any expensive equipment, she hasn't had any challenges in there. There's really not a reasonable need of why we'd need to put a camera in there. But when you look at our Fab Lab, we've got a lot of expensive equipment in there. And we house some classes in there. And we want to make sure the equipment stays there and that the kids are being safe with that equipment. And if that's not the case, then we would need to address that. And the cameras in there have helped us on numerous occasions in terms of some challenges, behavior challenges in there. And that has really been a benefit. There's a piece about teacher reflection in here too, which that's been a benefit as well.
I just want to say that I looked down the definitions, it is classroom and lab.
Same thing?
No, it's not
Oh.
defined at all.
It's not?
No.
Okay, I wrote a note to check that.
So, Dave, do you have any thoughts on this?
Well, do you have strikeouts in what you presented?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. First of all, I want to thank you for, and to these gentlemen, that you brought this policy to us, you highlighted for changes, that you have strikeouts. Now, I, as a former soup, would have wanted it like last Wednesday. Okay? And I'm not saying you did wrong. I think it's great that you brought this to us because we haven't had things like this given to us. So my thought is that as we go forward, if somebody wants to make changes in policy, whether it be a board member or a division of our school, that's how we do it. We have the old policy, we show what we're adding by highlighting, what we're changing by striking out, and have it to this policy committee by the Wednesday before the Monday meeting. That gets the policy people, these three, a chance to look at it. It gives Glenda a chance to look at it, and it'll just save time as we come in, and then they may have questions that, in this case, you could answer right away, and the meetings would go faster, and everybody would see the changes before they got here.
Yeah.
So
Correct.
and it's never had, in the past, I don't think you've seen like this
Somebody-
ahead of time,
a proposal.
or even had it at a meeting. So this is a good stepping stone to where this policy committee should go, is that if we're gonna have changes,
Mm-hmm.
they need to be to the policy committee by the Wednesday before with that kind of thing.
And
So
then-
that fits into something that we actually need.
And I feel like that's totally reasonable. In this case, I would suggest, on behalf of the committee, if this is okay with you, ladies, that we just quick run this past between Dean and Neola on the language, and then we could bring it forward to the full board for the next meeting,
And-
assuming that everything's okay.
And I understand that some of the language may need to be adjusted, but the basic premise I wanted to explain so that
Correct.
that does not get lost in what the language is.
Understandable, and I think it's a good point, and I think it's great for any area also where a staff member might want to request that there be a camera there, and for safety or behavioral concerns or what have you.
And I think that in the definitions that we also need to define shops as well as the labs in the classrooms. Because that word is specifically called out. And then regarding with what you said, I think we should send it to Neola. I don't think that this really needs to go to Dean because they have their attorneys, and
Correct.
I think we should be utilizing their services a little bit more.
Yeah.
Do you have an idea of a timeline or turnaround when you send things to Neola, such as this?
I don't. It's been a long time. I would hope that we could get it turned around real quick. I believe that the contact there is the same gentleman that I used to work with, so we're just going to clarify the word shop, classroom, just so those definitions are correct? Is
Yeah.
that what you're saying?
I have that in the notes.
Okay, thank you. So if we're okay with that, I would move to the next item, if there's no other. Thank you,
Thanks.
Clint.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Try to have it done for
Yeah, we'll try.
next Monday, and if not, it'll be October.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Item B is policy 3120, employment of professional staff.
And this is coming to us because it's a Neola update, or why? is it-
It was a request to add to the agenda.
Who made the request? Okay. So Andy, did you want to speak on this?
Well, yeah, we just created this policy last year, and for administrative positions, it says the district administrator shall provide redacted application information to the board prior to the interview process. And I really just want to know why we don't follow this policy.
I'm just reading this quick. So in the situation I'm pretty sure that you're speaking of, it was my understanding that the board was well aware of the vacancies and the need for those vacancies to be filled. I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, that there was email correspondence regarding interviews. And so I feel like any board member had the opportunity to be at those interviews. And I'm not sure who sat in on what interviews.
So there's two parts to it.
Okay.
Part of that, you're correct.
Okay.
that, The superintendent will ask for board members, and only 3 board members will be at those interviews.
Okay, yep.
And then the other part is that the entire board will receive the applications. in, you know, I know Bobby and Catherine weren't on the board when this was done, but Dave, you were, and I think the intent there was that some people would want to be in on those interviews, but others of us, due to time commitment, can't be at those interviews, but it doesn't mean we don't want to see those applicants.
Okay. I'm trying to find the language where it says that the board members see the applicants.
I'll just read it to you. The district administrator shall provide redacted application information to the board prior to the interview process.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Okay.
So on, page 2, it says, the employment of professional staff members prior to approval by the board is authorized when their employment is required to continue with the educational programming, except as prohibited by law, including the employment of full-time teachers and certain administrative employees on a substitute basis, depending on board approval. So I know I was there for some of the interviewing, and as you know, we had quite a few vacancies that came all at once, and so it was imperative that in order to keep the district running, that those needed to be filled right away. And so I think.
I don't have a problem with that.
Okay. What you're saying is the issue that you're taking is that all of us did not receive the
I'm saying this is a board policy we
Yeah.
created just last year, and already we choose not to follow it. I suspect that we paid good money to have this written up by Dean Dietrich, although I don't know that for a fact.
I think this was just,
Either way,
yeah.
I understand
Either
your
way.
point.
But,
Yeah.
you know, what is the point of having a board policy if you're not going to follow it?
And I agree with that, Andy. I would say that in the absence of in the situation that we were in, I believe that it was overlooked, and that is,
I don't believe it was overlooked because I discussed it with our superintendent.
okay.
And I guess maybe I should just ask you directly, Glenda.
Yeah, Glenn, did you have anything to add?
Yes, I do.
I'm not sure.
Because when you brought it up to me, it was after the fact, after I had hired our CNI director and the pupil services. So it was after the fact when you brought it up.
And it was already after the fact for the business director,
There were board members for the business director
but I did
interview.
not receive the applications.
I don't know that anyone received the applications. I
And
wasn't.
my point exactly, that why do we have this policy if we're not going to follow it?
Guess we'll change the policy. That's what
Yeah.
the policy committee is for, so we'll
If they
change.
want to change the
So that if they
policy.
want to change the policy, they'll change the policy, and if we made an error, we made an error. But we were kind of in a situation where things needed to be done so we could get the school year started.
Well, I don't argue that, you know.
I hear you, Andy.
I'm just saying,
So,
you know.
maybe we need to, maybe the policy was made at a time when things were different and people on the board felt they needed to be involved, which is what happened. And now, since this happened and went down, maybe this policy committee needs to look at it differently and say, oh, we're gonna make some changes. And if that's so, okay.
Yeah.
But you know what? We filled
I think
the four
proper way
spots
to
that
do
we needed to do.
is to change the policy before you start doing, you know.
And everything
doing
looks
what
good
would change.
2020, doesn't it?
Absolutely, Dave.
Yeah.
You're the
Well,
one who's always talking about
yeah.
2020.
Yeah,
I mean,
and I'm
you're always
looking at you.
bringing things up from the past, but I'm just saying,
Should the
policy
policy,
chairperson, if you don't think this policy is appropriate anymore, please bring it up for discussion or whatever,
Right.
and change it. And it's policy 3120 and 3130.
So,
They're both the same.
Right, with all due respect, I absolutely understand your point in saying that if we have something in writing, we should be sticking to it, because that's the same thing I'm saying for all policies across the board with our staff and students. When we put things in place, we should be living by them. In this situation, I honestly think that it was an oversight that those applications or resumes, that information wasn't like distributed to each person. I think what was happening at that time of sort of chaos is that we wanted to get some key personnel in place. And so this policy is new to me since I've been on the board or since I was here. So again, I think we can discuss whether or not we need to change some verbiage and maybe put may, or I'm not sure like which sentence, but maybe we put something in there that allows us to
I don't see where 3120 asks for the information.
Must be 3130.
Maybe it's 3130.
okay, so would it be okay with the committee to look over this a little deeper? Maybe do some highlights, some strike-throughs, and try to get the language cleaned up a little bit and bring it back? Because I'm not prepared right now to make changes to the language.
I would agree that
You know what I'm,
your
you know what I'm
committee
saying?
look at it and then bring it back at the next policy.
And I'd be happy to talk with you about that in the meantime, Andy. So we're all on the same page when we get here. But again, like, I'm not in the position to make changes to the language without taking
Right.
some time, you know? Okay?
Okay, so it's going to come back to both policies?
Yeah.
Do we have a timeline?
Next.
October would be, right? Holy moly. October
At
11th?
the next policy committee.
And that's 3120 and
3130. I'm guessing one's professional staff,
Yeah.
one is,
No, it's just different administrators.
oh, okay. Okay.
I don't see anything in here though where it says the redacted information, unless I'm just overlooking it.
And are you looking at both of them?
I'm looking at 3120, 3130 is much
Different.
smaller.
Okay. So, not to beat a dead horse, but where does it say that you're supposed to get the copies or whatever?
So if you're in the third paragraph,
The board shall approve?
no, when the following
Oh,
positions
when the following,
become
okay.
vacant.
Yep.
What, the
List
following
all
what?
positions.
When the following positions become vacant, third paragraph.
The district administrator shall ask for board member participation.
Right,
If none is found, the process will continue.
right.
The district administrator
Oh, there.
shall also provide redacted application information to the board prior to the interview process.
Yep, I
Right.
see it.
So that's a little unclear because that almost could be interpreted as the district administrator shall provide that information to the board members that are participating, which is mentioned in the prior sentence.
yeah.
Because then again, the sentence right after that says the number of board members observing interviews must not constitute a quorum of the full board. So we're still talking about the board members that are participating in the interview. Do you know what I mean?
And if I remember,
I agree with you that that wording is unclear.
Okay.
When we discussed it last year,
Yeah.
it wasn't unclear. It was clear that 3 members would participate, all board members would get the applications.
Okay,
I
but
think-
that is not what it says.
if I remember correctly, and I'd have to go back and watch the video, but I'm thinking the former superintendent did not want to send out all of the, basically the resumes, qualifications of everybody that was applying for different jobs, because it could have been, say,
And that's
6,
what
7
redacted.
people that would have went out, even though it would have been redacted. I think the conversation then turned to, okay, well then the board members that agreed to do the interview process should be the ones that are overlooking. I mean, that's what I think.
That's not the way
I
I
don't know.
remember.
Okay.
It is recorded, we can
Yes.
go back and watch it.
Okay,
Yeah.
you know, my thought on this would be, we don't need to see all 6 or 7. You could see the 3 you're going to interview, but more importantly, it'd be nice to see the one you hire.
So you're saying after it's the interviewing committee
That would be,
approves this, say this person over here, you want to see this, the whole board?
that would
should be-
satisfy me.
Okay,
I don't know about other board members, somebody else have this written up, and so
no, that makes sense.
I'm not sure what their intent was. But for me, when people ask me, well, what about that person you hired?
Mhm.
What are their qualifications? Well, I'd like to see that, and answer that question.
I agree.
You know, and I guess while we're on it, you know, if you go back a few years, and you can probably know this, Bobby, when we would hire teachers, we would see some of their qualifications. And now it's pretty minimal what we see.
Mhm.
Um,
Even when even when you're saying like the new hire report, back
yeah,
in
the new hire report's pretty streamlined.
right, right, and that is definitely something that I would like to see too. I totally agree with that. For one, new hires, we're getting into something that's not necessarily on the agenda, but hiring and terminations, I don't believe belong in the consent agenda. I think that should be separate with much greater detail. But that's beside the point. Back to the policy language. Those 3 sentences that we just went through need to be cleaned up, besides looking at the rest of it. I don't feel that that's.
Well, clearly it's unclear.
Yeah,
you and
because
I don't agree about what
you're
it says.
interpreting different than I am. I feel like we're talking about the same people, whomever is participating, but you're saying just the opposite, that it wasn't that way. So we definitely need to look at that language.
Yeah,
I can agree with that.
and I know we had
Okay.
quite a lengthy discussion around that, going back and forth, back and forth.
Yeah, and it's just a little clumsy. I think
yeah.
the language is a little clumsy, so we'll fix it.
And I would say, you know, like, if we get 12 applications for some position, maybe we don't need to see that, because some of those people would just assume that wherever they're working now, that didn't all become public, that they're looking for a new job.
And I think in order to also protect applicants, because
Privacy,
that
right.
will, yeah, that could also deter applicants as well, if they felt that their information was being shared out and that everybody had access to know who was applying for positions.
It should really be a conversation between the committee, HR, and yourself about how that practice is going to look, to keep it clean and keep our language correct, and our language matches what your practice is, yeah. But then there, again, Andy, there are some privacy, matters where you wouldn't want everything shared. So maybe it's a communication effort on Glenda's behalf with the board. You know what I mean? I don't,
You know, I just question, once we've hired somebody, yeah, maybe there's something in their application that shouldn't be shared.
I'm saying prior to hiring though, even.
But he was saying earlier that he was fine if we just shared the person that the committee
Yep.
decided to hire.
And this is for your committee to work out, because some people might say, no, I want to see those 4 we're going to interview, or I want to see all 12 of them.
And
Okay.
they should be on the
Thank you.
hiring committee.
I would think it would be wise to also reach out to Neola about that.
Definitely,
because
and
they would
see
have
what their language
their-
looks like in other, okay. So, we'll fix it. We'll
Look into it.
look into it,
Okay.
which means fix it. All right. Next is, 3130 is assignment and transfer.
It's the same word.
So, okay. Along with assignment and transfer, with that hire termination report, like, I know that we have board members that are looking for more detail on internal transfers, and I think that's probably, again, like something, so you understand when somebody said, okay, so this person went to, they were I'm exaggerating, but they were a math teacher at the high school and now they're teaching kindergarten at East. What happened? And board members don't know that, and that can put us right on the, like, we don't know what's going on. So all of that, all of those staffing things need to be looked at, or better communicated with the board, I would say.
More than I was intending you to look at, but yes.
Well, another board member brought that to my attention actually today, so, and that fits, that aligns directly with assignment and transfer, the internal transfers. So, same thing on item C then. Okay, item D is human growth and development, which is, if you want to touch on that a little bit, I know that Jill called me this afternoon and she's not able to be here, and she really wanted to be present for questions and answers.
Yes, and I do not have the Neola policy with the suggested or updates, so she asked that we just
Move
postpone
that
it.
to
Yep,
October.
yep.
Perfect. Yeah, I don't know what she's looking for there.
Well, when there was a release, because a lot of people updated human growth and development resources last year, and part of that change was updating and improving policy. Most of it was around state statute changes, so.
Thank you, Andy. Sorry. Okay.
So that's.
So move
and
to it October.
They didn't do that with the recent Human Growth and Development Committee meeting. They didn't do anything with the policies, so the policy still has to be updated, is my understanding.
Okay. Makes sense for October.
Okay, so when
Unless
we're,
there's a,
again, when we're updating that policy, if it could come to us with the highlights and strike-throughs of the changes, that would be awesome.
Yes.
prior, yeah. Okay, item E is personnel update. This is always interesting.
So currently we have 2 positions open at central office. Accounting specialist is open and interviews are currently being conducted. And accounting assistant and accounts payable is also open and currently interviews are being conducted. We have an FTE, a full-time first shift custodian, and a second shift housekeeper, 1 full-time position for buildings and grounds. Under curriculum and instruction, we have 2 title positions that are open due to a retirement and a resignation. We haven't posted those yet because we haven't finalized the title grant, because that money will then be taken to pay for those teachers. And when you look at the grant itself, it will usually tell you this building gets this much of an allocation, and depending on what teacher salaries are, determine how many people go where. So we're kind of hanging out in the winds right now to make sure once we get the grant completed, we'll know more about if we need additional people or if we don't, if we're good with where we are. But those positions, I think it's also important to note that people have to have a certain 316 license. So you can't hire an elementary licensed classroom teacher and pay them with title funds. They have to have a particular reading teacher license in order for them to be paid with title. And then we still have the 2 English language arts positions posted at the high school, currently being filled by WVA, and math, 1 math position at the high school, and a long-term sub-position in math at the high school, until we have someone that is on a leave that will be returning to fulfill that position.
Okay, so just to be clear, the 2 English language arts classes and the math class, we are searching still for, and where is that? That's just on the, was it weekend? Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
And then for special education and pupil services, we have a teaching position at the high school, 1 at the middle school, 1 at the elementary, and we have hired paraprofessionals to fill other special education teacher openings at all levels. So that's kind of like an issue in many, many districts.
So
There
those
just
IAs?
are not
Okay.
Yeah, there are not enough special education teachers to fill the need.
Okay. So, comment, is that it on staffing? Is that all?
Yes, that's all.
Okay, so to me, just looking at what those numbers look like means we've hired a significant amount of people since, in the last month or so, 6 weeks, okay?
Yeah.
I know there's been some internal moves.
Yes.
Yeah, and so, like I had asked before, I would like to see, that internal movement and the whole staffing picture. To me, that's something that the board should be aware of. And to me, I would ask that the board president and vice president consider having that a separate, outside of the consent agenda. But that's maybe something you and Danny can discuss. Back to your point, is you asked about where these positions are sought after, being weekend. I also heard an ad on the radio.
So, here's a question.
Somebody put it there.
Well, I
It says,
know-
please join our team, and,
Good.
And it's been on Facebook too.
okay.
So my question is, though, and I don't remember, I think it said, had the link for going to weekend, but the radio ad, does it, like, where is it directing people to send their resume, their application?
Well,
Because-
my guess would be that it's saying, I heard this at the tail end, and I was trying to quick soak up as much as I could, but I would guess it's probably referencing the website, of which the human resource page needs work. You know what I'm
So-
saying?
Yeah,
So-
because like I've, people in the community have come to me and saying that, hey, I've applied for the custodian position and it went to so-and-so's email. And then I found out that they weren't working there anymore, so it got redirected to forwarded to somebody else who was then leaving, and then, so it went to somebody else and they never heard back, they never heard nothing.
Yeah.
So,
It's
we have
messy.
people applying for these positions and they're getting nowhere with sending their stuff to us.
Okay.
Another, to me, another job duty that falls under HR is to follow up on all applicants, and they should be going to one general place.
Yeah.
And then that HR person shares them with this department manager or this,
And it should be
You know what I
just a
mean?
generalized email,
Yeah,
not,
HR at
not
Annie Go
specific to any
Schools.
person. Because when
correct,
that person
because,
leaves, then
yeah.
here we
Human
are again.
resource.
So
Yeah.
yeah, hopefully we can streamline that application process, and we've talked about that, you
Yes.
know. But in the absence of an HR department, that's been under the former superintendent's
Right,
duties, which wasn't happening, and now it's just messy, you know, it's.
right. But it wouldn't be that hard to create a generalized email.
Absolutely
Be able to put that
not.
on.
At least so it all goes to
ads
one
and-
place.
Yeah,
Yeah, I agree. And so then again, like when you follow the employment link off the website,
Mm-hmm.
it's still going to Melanie Ryan and, or, you know, like 3 different people that aren't here.
Right. But yeah,
So-
exactly.
So that needs some work with Dustin or whoever does the website, correct?
Yeah, Dustin
Okay.
does.
And I'm a firm believer that our open positions should be on, not just, like, it should be on Indeed, and stuff like that, because, maybe somebody's just, I don't know, and they're looking for something else and they see that, and they have the credentials to be, fill whatever position, but they're not necessarily looking on weekend.
Yeah.
Or they don't know.
I
what
do
we
know
can.
that we have posted on Indeed, but I also know that there is a fee to do that. Like, it's quite a bit more expensive. So, and most educators look at weekend because that's primarily the main outlet for people to know what positions are open. And if it's not teaching, then we typically do post things on Indeed because we've gotten more applicants
Right.
for those positions at central office. Most of them have come through.
Right, because if you didn't know, if you weren't in education, you might not even know what weekend is, and you
Right.
wanna,
I
you're,
didn't, yeah, tell you.
And then you
Accounting.
have to create an account, and it can
Right.
be quite cumbersome. Yeah.
So like the accounting specialist, assistant and account payable and stuff like that, they should be on there, I think. Have we ever, looked at hiring a recruiter as well? because there's recruiters that are specialty recruiters that hire, just for, healthcare,
Yeah.
just for technology, stuff like that, so.
So I do know that there was a person who reached out to our Pupil Services Director about, and it may have been placement recruiting, but it was quite costly, like a lot more money than what it would cost to hire a teacher
Okay.
outright, like almost not affordable.
Okay,
It's quite a bit of money.
okay. Yeah, I wasn't sure on the cost of it, but, yeah, okay.
Yeah, and again, in special education, so everybody is struggling to fill those positions.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and teachers too, everybody's struggling to,
Mm-hmm,
yeah.
correct.
Anything else on personnel? Questions? Would you be okay in preparing or having something prepared for the board meeting as far as internal transfers? Well, Andy had also asked for, like new hires where we can see some credentials. And that could be, what we used to do is we would put Jane Doe, 4th grade teacher at East Elementary, and then it would just say UW La Crosse, 5 years experience at Green Bay East Elementary, whatever, just so we had some sort of something where this person came from. Or it could just say internal transfer, just so we have some idea of who's coming in.
So just update it on the spreadsheet that gets attached, is that what you're wanting? Additional
It is on
information
there.
added?
It is?
Yeah, because it says, education/credentials, I believe, on there.
Okay.
But most of the time, it's not filled out,
Correct,
yeah.
correct. Another job for the HR person coming in. Sorry.
Okay, I want to make sure I have this correct. So we need to add,
Well, it's on there, she said, the new hire report. She said it's on the spreadsheet that we're using. It's just never completed. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it says, I believe it says.
Education
slash
credentials.
Credentials. Because I know sometimes we've seen, bachelor's degree.
it does, it
This,
says new hire, position, their salary, the number of applicants, the education, their years of experience, and who was on the interview team.
That's
All of
perfect.
that's on there.
If it would be completed, that would be awesome.
Yeah.
Like, get her off this committee.
Thanks, Adam.
Okay, so we'll stop there with a personnel update and move to,
Season 5.
Not yet, I don't think. Maybe.
By the time we get to finance tonight, we're going to bring up a solution to central office as far as our business office. So I'm not going to talk about it now, but I'm going to talk about it in policy
no, I had
And to
finance and
solve-
personnel.
to solve the problem. Just
All right.
so you know, if you want to
That's-
hang around.
That's a tease.
Okay, does that have to do with our personnel at central office?
Yes.
Oh, well, yeah, it could.
Well, then I absolutely think it belongs at this committee.
But it's not on the.
I'm so, well, that can fall under e-personnel update.
It can. It can. I just kind of said, should I do it? Okay. CISA 5. Each CISA basically has the thing they do. Okay? CISA 5 is business office, payroll, the whole thing. Well, we're having people retire, we are having people leaving, and Kelly and I have talked about the possible solution for us is for this year to work with CISA 5.
And contract that out.
Contract it out, let them do payroll, let them do all our financial projects that need to be done for the state. And then they work with Kelly. And we then see if what we would have paid in salaries and fringes and all that. And
What a
look at
contract
what,
looks
and if
like.
it's working for us next year, maybe we stick with it. Or it allows Glenda and Kelly to hire people for the next school year to fill these positions, and then we would have less to subcontract out, or if we like the way it works, we stick with it.
So, question regarding that, okay, that sounds like a great idea. Is that included in the contract that we have with them now, or we would have to?
No, this would be different, but you have all these salaries going away.
Right.
Fringes.
Right, and then it would just,
And
yeah.
then, instead of doing it here at Door Street, CISA 5 does it, and I think, is that Portage?
I know it's down in the Point area. 5 is, I believe, maybe, I'm not sure.
Yeah,
I'm not
for
sure
some
about
reason,
that.
I think it's
It may be.
Portage. But anyway,
I know there are
that's
other districts
their,
that use them.
that's their specialty. And I know Kelly's already been talking with them, working with them on the budget, and, so anyway,
Well, that's unreal, because I know, like, even when we look at CISA 7's contract, I'm very interested in all of the line items of services that they offer. That is a magic firm, you know? So if CISA 5's specialty area or whatever is more of that finance
and
types
again,
of things, it's,
you think of a small school around here like Elko or
Right.
White Lake, and can they, can they handle all, and I will say, 17 years ago, I had 2 ladies who worked for me in the business office. And that was it at Whitburn. There's a lot different stuff, a lot more reports for the state, all that kind of stuff. So you have this school district that maybe their budget is 40% bigger than ours. Well, back in the day, they probably needed 3 people, and at some point it went to 5, and then it came back to 4. Well, but if CISA 5 can do everything, and we aren't paying salaries and fringes, it's gonna hopefully be close,
or
and they would handle everything.
the compliance issues is what is concerning to me as far as reports and
Yes,
timelines, deadlines. I know even for Michelle, there's reports that I was doing back in the day that are, all DPI governed timelines, and you can't get around them. And I know the finance is even
Worse.
more strict.
and you have federal,
and
and
maybe-
then with all the federal funds.
Right.
that
They
you
all
run
different
through.
grants,
Right,
Yeah.
and
monies
this is
work
what these
different.
people do each and every day.
And
it's their
so where I was
specialty.
going with like a White Lake, their superintendent is gonna walk in, and if they are a finance guy, maybe it'll work, but if it doesn't,
How would he know?
they go
Right.
to CISA
Yeah,
5.
definitely.
That's where they get sent. Go to CISA 5, they'll take care of you. So, that's what we're gonna look at.
So is that something where we'll see some contract dollars come forward in the next short while of what that's gonna cost?
Sure.
And maybe not,
And we haven't gone down the road to check out the whole price, but we're gonna have to. With no people, there again, as these people leave us, if we're gonna handle it ourselves, then we have to hire a whole bunch of people that we may not be able to find.
Or
So
or
therefore-
maybe you can hire, maybe we could hire, some positions that would cost less and can sort of administrator and push the papers around and make sure we're working with CISA, so there's enough bodies in central office, but not necessarily responsible for, like, the accounting specialist.
Just make sure they get the information on time is what you're saying.
Yeah, stuff like that.
Okay.
Like more of an administrative assistant?
More of an administrative assistant position, because, the accounting specialist, if that's her title, I mean, she's a bona fide accountant. So maybe, one person to sort of shuffle things around that both of those ladies are handling now, with CISA 5 doing the real guts of the job. You know what I'm saying?
And for this first year, like
You
I
might
said,
need another-
it might be that we need to just do it with CISA and then look for people for next year. And that's where I'm at in my head.
Well, thanks for sharing that, because that's interesting and sensible.
CISA would send up a representative to talk to the full board and explain.
Sure, because actually CISA 5
That's great.
trains people.
Okay.
So like if we brought in new people that weren't, let's say a good accountant who has not done anything with the school accounting system, they
Totally
need to be
different.
trained in that system. Well, who you call? You call CISA 5.
Okay.
And then they send up somebody to train your people. Well, for this 1 year, maybe we just need CISA 5.
Okay.
So that's where I'm at.
Yeah, if that's gonna be cost saving for us, I'm all for it.
I think it's
But
possible
Kelly,
that
I
it
think,
could be.
and I'm sure Kelly would do a cost analysis
Mhm.
to show us the difference between hires and doing it with them.
Yeah, because there are
But-
several districts that are contracting with them for those services.
Well, not only that, but you don't know, even if you were to hire somebody, you don't know if they're gonna stick around, so you invest time and effort into training them and they decide, this isn't for me.
Or they
And CISA 5,
do
they
all
have a
kinds of
contract, they have to
admin stuff.
fulfill it.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Nope.
Item F is consideration to terminate exit interviews firm. We have talked about this before, and I think we were all in agreement that we were okay with doing that. But we don't have a process put in place for how we're going to handle exit interviews going forward. So that's where we still are with this. We were gonna look at questions. Yeah. Thoughts?
So I do have a copy of the questions that are asked, and I think that we went over these the last time, if I'm not mistaken, and talked about how they were sort of leading questions. I can take this back when we have our next central office administrative meeting to see what suggestions they have and compile some questions to bring back for you all to review, and building principals as well.
So that would be the admin team and building principals.
Mhm.
That is perfect. Good job, Lee. When do you meet with that group again?
I meet with central office tomorrow, and then we meet on the 27th, I believe, with building principals, because most of us are out. Like, I have a superintendent conference next week.
Okay, so can this come back to the committee in October with
Yep.
new questions?
Yes.
And then also,
Yep, I have a meeting the 27th with building principals.
okay, and then also, the firm that we pay in the meantime, I mean, I don't think that's happening.
I think
We've
they're
had several
hit
people-
and miss. I know that when we send letters to staff, it says at the bottom, you will be contacted by this company and they will be submitting an exit interview to you. And I think if they do complete it, the company shares these with, I'm not sure, maybe Kelly, or even our payroll department, I'm not sure. But I don't think most of the time they're filled out.
okay, so
And
are
I
we
feel like
able
we could
to?
do a Google form that could be just automatically sent to them through their personal email, and they can complete it, and then that comes back and that data's compiled in a spreadsheet.
Another job for
for
HR.
free. Yes.
So, with exit interviews at this point, are we able to sever the ties with that company and say, we no longer need your services?
I can check on that and see.
Okay. Because let's get that
Yeah.
out of here.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a lot of money, but it just makes things clumsy and totally unpersonal, if you ask me. This isn't, I don't know if this falls under the agenda or not. I'm concerned a little bit about where if applicants are being addressed, like a thank you letter for applying, not, when they leave, when they come in, all of that. So I think that's something that.
As a whole, I can't speak to that. I know things that I've had, that I've arranged as far as interviews personally for director positions or whatever. I make those calls. I call them individually and say, you know,
Okay,
we decided to go with someone else.
okay.
That's something that's really lacking in today's world. Like, you could apply for 20 jobs, and you're really lucky if you hear back from one that you didn't get it, and that you just never get called.
Yeah, that's
mean, it's just-
awful.
yeah.
It's terrible practice.
Yeah, how do you, whether you know to continue or not, yeah, it's a nightmare, if you're looking for a job right now.
So I would just make note that all of, the items that we've talked about would fall under personnel. And I think we're okay. So next item would be looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right. Thank you.
I couldn't.
It is a
Yeah.
little,
I got everything but that one where you were doing three at the same time running across. I didn't get to the third one at all.
Well, the
Of
good,
course, I'm a slow reader apparently.
the good thing is that this is on a continuous, it should be on a continuous loop, so then it would just start over again, and then you could pause at any time to read.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a North parent?
No,
North kids?
no. Those are stock kids too, they're not.
Stock kids.
Yeah, stop video kids, yeah. Well, because like, somebody brought that up, but like, I don't, we don't want to take a video of our actual
yeah,
kids
yeah,
because
yeah.
I don't know who gives that permission or not.
Yeah, right,
Yeah.
right, that's why I was asking, but
Mhm.
you thought of that, good.
Can you turn it up just a little bit? Oh, okay.
very inviting.
Northwest, east.
Didn't do east because north and west, all of the same conditions are at east. It was kind of gonna be repetitive, so.
East did one. I mean, Tom did
Tom
one.
has
Doug did one, yes, yeah. Yep.
What are you gonna do with these?
Well, I didn't do one because it's the same.
No, but I mean, what are you gonna do with them now that you've made them? Are they for
Oh,
the
okay. For
committee or for, who are they
social
for?
media.
Social media.
Yep, to kind of get the highlights out of each building and kind of the condition it's in, and just to make it, the public more aware, families more aware.
Just a little plug to keep
Yeah.
Yeah.
the community interested.
Yeah,
For the upcoming tours.
could probably add that one that Tom made to the group.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you think we should like,
Gosh, I've done that like 5 times.
put one out like every second or third day, you know, so that it
Well, it
stays
depends.
fresh? I mean, I don't know that we wanna put them all at one time, do we? Or-
No, but like you, depending on when the school tours are gonna be scheduled, you're gonna wanna have them build up to that,
Sure.
so.
The only thing I'm thinking is that, just like we said, where's East? Well, the people at East who have kids there are going to want to see what's the
We're gonna
problem.
put Tom's.
Oh, you're going to use Tom's?
We can, yeah. That's
Okay,
fine.
all right,
Yeah, I think it'd be good to use.
Yeah,
yeah, okay,
yeah, that's fine.
yeah,
Yes.
we need
you're
something
right.
that has East up there.
Yep.
I
for
was
them
just
to
thinking
see.
yours, it's a little different music than you had in
A
yours.
little bit. It was still good though.
Tom's is a little depressing.
I mean, yeah, the whole thing's a little bit depressing, right?
It is.
It's, yeah, you're gonna make more of them. You know, I noticed that on the high school one, you focused on the band room and a couple other things.
Bomb.
But, yeah, and the bomb, but there's
There's a lot.
a
of
lot
other
you
things,
could
yeah.
focus on, right?
Yep,
And I think, you know, if you, I'm not gonna make them, but if you were gonna lead up to a tour day, you could have different videos, but I'm not gonna make them.
yeah. No, I definitely could, so, yeah.
No, I think maybe more in-depth and more detail too is, you know, once the board gets a charge from the task force,
Oh,
we could use those to keep promoting
yeah,
more community engagement as we go through that process too,
yeah.
and hit more of the highlights. So,
Yeah, and one thing, you know, when we're talking about, you know, the task force update from the agenda, I think we need to make sure people know that the meetings are recorded and they're on the first page of our website, district website. So it's actually really easy to find, because most things are not easy to find on our website, so, yeah. Yeah. Mhm.
So within the next, well, before the 21st, we're gonna have the meetings the tours at the other buildings and put these videos out
Yep,
between now and then.
You're gonna have tours at all the buildings before the 21st.
That is the intent, and if we need to have more after, we can. But at least schedule one to give the task force members a chance to get there. We were gonna set them last week in their principal meeting, got other things got prioritized. So,
well, and it's not just the task force members, though, we also want the public to come in and tour the schools too, because then they can see the conditions firsthand for themselves. You know, because if you're there with your kids, you're not looking at the boiler rooms, you're not looking at, you know, that kind of stuff. You're looking
Right.
at, you know, your kids. So, you know, we want to give the community an opportunity to come in and actually see the conditions and understand where things are at and recognize, how, you know, bad a condition. Because, you know, in years past, I've said it once before, that I voted no to all the referendums because I didn't know the real condition. But once I started, when I went on the tour right away with you, it was a real eye-opener. So I think, you know, our community needs to know that. So,
yeah.
yeah,
See, I'm sure we'll have to do more tours as we go through
yeah,
for the next year.
yes.
We'll have to keep scheduling, but just,
Maybe we could do one a week at each building every night for about 6 months, Jake, and you could lead these.
it would be wonderful. Yeah. So, okay. As far as other task force items, how are we feeling? Are we sounds like we're going to possibly have some more discussion on the 21st about, we're kind of starting to get the sense that the task force has understood the condition of the elementary buildings and is ready to talk about, how to move forward. That's the takeaway that we kind of got out of our debrief the other day.
Yeah. So we're gonna be, it's at this phase now where we're gonna start making decisions and not just be talking about things, so, which is good. I'm looking to see, okay, so it's gonna be at the high school, the meeting is.
On the 21st.
Yes.
Yep.
Yep. And again, we're just gonna talk about the process and progress that we're doing, and, Lori Mueller, from the Donovan Group is gonna do a presentation on modern teaching and learning environments. So, one other thing that should be mentioned is we're going to be bringing the YMCA and the Boys and Girls Club, planning committees, if you will, on board a little bit later in this process, but we recognize that they still are going to be a pretty important piece to this. So. Do you have anything else?
I don't have anything for task force. You guys good? Okay. Start a school update, just kind of wanted to go over a couple of projects we did this summer. We didn't do a whole lot, but as far as big projects, definitely had enough little stuff that we stay busy with. But the walk-in cooler and freezer is up and running. That was one of the big ones. Overall, went smooth. Nothing went outside of budget. So I think that one is pretty much done. There's a couple trim pieces that we got to get in there, custom-made trim piece that goes in, like between the block wall and the cooler. So that, and then greenhouse is, the structure itself has been, the new sheets have gone in, and we've had a few leaks. The guys have been back twice now. Today was one of the days too, trying to get them sealed up. We expected that coming in, talking with other people that did that, and the companies themselves, that when you put the new pieces of poly in, they just don't seat the same way anymore. So we'll continue to get that worked on, and then work on the watering system. Tom Madrashko is helping us with that, and then for the irrigation, and then the electrical, he's helping us too. We're getting a little bit, Rick and I are getting pulled in lots of different directions right now, and we're hopeful to be able to do a little bit more of that in-house, and we're losing ground, so Tom's gonna help with that.
When do you anticipate it being finished and able to be used?
As far as all the construction, I guess you'd call it, being done would be roughly like that first week in October.
Okay.
Being done. Then we're gonna have some startup and, learning curve to get it going. Talking with Mike and Shalyn the other day. Sounds like as long as they're geared up and ready to fully operate by November, was what Shalyn said that they really be
Okay.
starting to use it. So
And all the control systems will be in place by then too?
it's here. I mean, most of it's actually already
Okay.
mounted. It's just, we gotta get it wired up yet. That's where Tom's gonna help.
Okay.
Well, he's here doing the plumbing. He does both, so.
Okay. Do you want to talk a little bit about the window project at the middle school? Kind
Oh,
of
wait,
like
I just have one question on
okay.
the
Sorry,
greenhouse.
Andy.
I was looking at donations there in August, and I was thinking, the greenhouse have the donations exceeded the projected cost?
Of just the construction, yes. There's some other things that I know that Shalyn wants to do as far as new innovative ways to do different things in
Mhm.
there, so.
And the projection that we approved was just for construction, though, right? Yeah.
believe so, yeah. So,
I know I had added it up before, and it seemed really close, but then I know you had a big donation there, and
Right.
so I was thinking that must be over.
And Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, I mean, we're still kind of working on some donation stuff too, right?
Yeah, there's still some things that possibly could come in yet, so it's set up so that as they come in, they'll still go in that greenhouse account and can be used for future things. We're talking some landscaping stuff outside, and then we need to do something with the cement block brick. It's kind of faded, and so we're looking at either cleaning that or painting that or something in the future, so it all looks like it's new again, so.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, they did a really good job. We were nervous that we weren't gonna have enough funds to do it. We certainly didn't think we would have enough in-house, and turns out they raised all the money and then some, so.
Mm-hmm.
Big shout out,
Community's
big
been
shout
great.
out.
They really come through.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's good to see.
Any other
Okay,
questions?
doing good.
Sorry about that. And then, the window project at the middle school, needed to have some prep work done for it. So-
Yeah, a couple places, we had engineering look at like the heating and things like that. There was 2 offices that they identified that needed some tweaks to the heating. In talking with, the people that use those offices, it sounds like it's been like that for quite a while, that it's not due to the new windows. It's been an existing problem that they've always had cold corners in that area, just not enough BTU coming out of that heating system. So we upped that a little bit, added some fin coil, a couple of forced air cabin unit heaters. Nothing major, but got those up to where they probably should have been even years ago. And then did a lot of, cabinets and electrical outlets and data lines, Mark and his guys helped with that, the data side. Smart boards, a few heating pipes that over the years have been ran over the window openings and things like that. So just really tried to prep as much as we can so that when we can start in the spring or late spring, there's no holdups and they can make as efficient progress as they can. So,
Any questions? How many of those, of the vents, the exterior vents, did you have to move?
oh geez.
Was there quite a few?
There's a whole list of them. Some of them we had to move now, some we just disconnected, and some is part of the spec on the contractors. Like if they're just completely going away, I told them to demo them. I'm not gonna deal with that. Some of them they're gonna need to put a new penetration through the top part of the window area when they do the construction. And some of it was just easy for us to get rid of right now. And we had a bunch of, the old unit vent, some of the old unit vent holes that were eliminated or abandoned over the years, that Hornets have now found a way to get in and that caused most problems. So we got those all closed up, and sounds like so far we've been much improved on that front, so,
Okay.
yeah.
Were any of those like cold air, like fresh air intakes, if you will? Or were they just?
That we closed up?
Yes, okay.
I mean, they were old fresh air intakes for old pieces of equipment that are no longer there,
Okay,
than not using now.
okay. So just the cold air, or the fresh air intake is just those large vents on the back side of the building?
Nope,
Is
they'd
there
be
more?
like the rectangle ones that you can see, like if you go on Claremont, you'd be able to see.
Okay,
They're small, they look, I think they got holes like that big in them, they're just like a checker pattern.
okay,
It's a lot of those were old things.
okay.
Some are still being used, but, some
Mhm.
are not needed anymore, so.
Okay.
Yeah, just trying to make everything ready for next year. Talking with the transportation company, I think we're doing fairly well. That went off pretty good. Definitely a little different this year. We had new people here. side, Angela's no longer there, so that was a little bit of a learning curve with that, but, thanks to a lot of people's hard work, it happened, and it happened well, and, little hiccups here and there, but that's to be expected when you got as many kids as we do to move around and the takeaway from that is next year we're gonna be a little more proactive on setting some deadlines that if, parents, you need to get, we put it out there that they need to get registered by X date to receive transportation. And if they don't, there's supposed to be like a 2-day wait, and we didn't have that structured very well between Malians and ourselves this year, so it caused, especially Erin Wick, a lot of last minute work trying to get, I think she had 100 kids the last day before school started to have.
Oh my goodness.
Get
Wow.
tags made to the schools, and it happened. Everything went off good, but I think we can make that a better process next year. So
Yeah.
we'll work on that.
I know we talked about this before, but there's one particular day that the state counts for your transportation day. Is this correct for funding? I think there is. And I don't know what their day is.
There is a documentation that we have to provide for that. I don't
Uh-huh.
know the exact details, but
Yeah. I'm just going to throw it out there that,
I'm sure Maliev's knows,
um,
but I will look into that.
would it be worth it to try to get kids to ride that day so we get more funding? We don't care if they ride the rest of the year. This is one of the things where we get funded. We would get funded more if people knew about it.
Right.
It knew that if they just did this thing, I don't know how much we get per kid. Is it 500, 700, something?
Yeah, I've never heard of it before, so that's
He's right.
good to know.
Yeah, they just count that on one day.
Oh,
Yeah.
And, like, if you made that, I don't know, ride the bus day for,
yeah, I was gonna say, yeah.
you would have to think up some better reason
Right.
or additional reason besides we want more money.
Yeah, I didn't know that. It's interesting.
You can think about that one.
Any other questions or comments?
Great. Most riders get to the pizza party.
There you go.
There's something,
Something,
something like that, something that's really,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I'll cover that with Malians. I'm sure they're aware of it.
Yeah, and I don't know how it all fits in. I mean,
Yeah, because they have.
suddenly this kid on the far side of Gleason says, okay, I want a pizza. I'll ride the bus, and it's another 20 miles from Aliette. That doesn't work so good.
Sure.
All right, seeing no other questions or comments, our next Building and Grounds meeting is Monday, October 9th. And with that, we'll adjourn.
Okay, it's 7:30. We should stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. As far as roll call, all members are here. Danny's not here. Andy's here, Angie's here, I'm here, Kelly Fossbender is here, and our school district superintendent, Glenda Oginski. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kelly, and she can go through the agenda and get us going.
All right, so the first thing is your monthly update, which is a general fund financial summary. And this shows your prior year-to-date on the far left corner. It's separated by revenues, total revenues, expenditures, your total expenditures, and then your deficit surplus, and then what that end fund balance is. So if you look to the right, that next column over is called the prior year actual. And so that's what you'll want to compare to the next box over, which says current year to date. So if you're comparing what the prior year to date is, the current year to date, and then you're looking at that prior year actual, that's what you're going to compare to the preliminary budget. And if you remember, that preliminary budget is basically what you went through with previous Director of Business Services, and that's that estimate or that really preliminary budget that you approved earlier. Remembering that once October 15th comes around, that is when we'll get our actual revenues, and we'll be able to solidify the budget and move that over from preliminary to approved budget. So is there any questions on that?
So October 15th, we get our state funding,
Yes, that your
our
actual
actual
numbers
state
come out.
funding.
Yep, and
Yep.
then,
So when we do our budget hearing in October,
yes,
And so.
we will have firm numbers on what
Yes.
our tax,
yep.
Yes.
yeah.
So we're gonna have to have a special meeting in October for the budget, because I
Our
think
regular
it's
meeting's the third
like
Monday
And
is
it's like the 16th.
16th.
Right.
And
Yep.
so Kelly and I talked that maybe we'll go like to the next Thursday night to have a special meeting, so that will.
Not
give-
the 20th, the 27th, is that
Yeah,
what you're saying?
more like the 27th, because otherwise it won't be enough time.
Right,
Yeah.
because you have to get that booklet printed and all that, so we're thinking that the following Thursday will give her enough time to get it done. So
Yep.
we'll have that special meeting, which will be short, we'll have the budget hearing ahead of time, and then that'll be the only thing on the agenda is to approve the mill rate and the budget.
But it'll all be accurate, it won't
It'll
be an
be-
estimate.
Right,
Correct.
right,
Yep.
and that's why I tried to talk Tim into going from August. See, in a non-unified district like we are, you have an annual meeting in August, and I would always have to tell the public, this is an estimate. The mill rate could go up, the mill rate could go down. It's all gonna depend on the third Friday count with students. It's also gonna be what the state decides to give us, what percentage toward every dollar we budget, what's the percentage they will give us in Fund 10.
But what about my taxes? Because my township has its own evaluation, and mine, like if my township, if the evaluation doesn't go up at all, but in the city of Antigo, it goes up by 10%, then
You would pay less.
I would pay less.
So
But do we
if-
know that in October?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Yeah, that's in the booklet.
Okay,
So,
I just didn't
and
know when
that's
those
the hard thing.
evaluations
That's
come
the
out.
hard thing for people to understand.
Yeah.
So we come out and say, oh, like last year, the mill rate's 5.
Mhm.
But city might have paid 4.7. And then somewhere where they reevaluated, and their percentage goes up, and their mill rate goes up in some cases. So
Yeah.
for the district as a whole, it's 5, but everyone's above or
Yeah.
below it.
But it's nice if we
But
can
that's
get
in
the
there.
actual number
Yep,
right then.
Yep.
Yes,
It's good, good, okay.
yep. Okay, and then the next piece is the Boys and Girls Club. So looking at the Academic Success Program, this started 4 years ago at the Antigo Middle School, I believe, under Amy Downs' leadership. I know she was a big part of that. Kids falling behind with homework got help. They were given a snack and bused home. And then the Boys and Girls Club would pick it up and they moved it to the clubhouse where they got access to dinner, and then it serves kindergarten and on up. Kids got bused home at 5:30, and then they looked for support financially from our school district. Staffing wages for homework help, for after-school programming at the club, and then transportation from the hub home. And this is all included in that $27,000 MOU that will be on the board agenda at the board on Monday.
Is that an increase? I can't remember. Was it, I was thinking it was 24 last year, 25 last year?
It's 25.
Okay.
I have a couple questions. The busing expenses,
Yes.
when it says participants will receive dinner at 5 o'clock and be bused home at 5:30, busing expenses will be covered by USDA, right? What about the busing expenses to the club from the schools? Are we paying, is that included?
So, no, that was what I found out, why they were charging, was because when they drop students off at the club, they get charged $5 for every bus each day that drops kids off. And I'm not sure if that is because it's just a way to charge for kids that maybe aren't signed up for transportation, why Malliett does that. But we had met with Jake to discuss that and to set up a meeting with the person that owns Malliett to have a conversation about that, because they're already getting paid once from the school district. So, you know, why that, it's really
I mean, I could see if it was
unique.
10 miles out or, south of town or something like that, but it's like literally
I know, I'm
just a jump
sorry.
over here.
I'm sorry.
This way and this way.
Danny's always here.
And they're dropping
I'm
off, so
sorry.
it's not like it's really any
Your
extra.
idea
That's,
about that one day
that's
of
just the
busing.
thing. So yeah, and I just don't
Kids
want
that-
families to
that
be
ride the bus.
billed
Need
for
hearing.
extra
And
transportation
we'll have other kids who are
when
going
they're
over to the
getting money
Boys and
from
Girls
us
Club from the
for
other
that.
schools.
Correct. They
Just
bill
what, kind of what
the
they're.
club
Uh-huh.
for
Because they get charged
that
$5.
$5 per bus each day.
I don't-
So the club is
yeah.
I'm just-
responsible
I'm
for
Well,
just-
that part of it.
that's worth
See,
asking
if
if
we
that
had,
would count. Yeah.
If they were able to continue on with the 21st Century Grant, they might have been able to do something bigger and provided services at the schools, at the
Okay,
individual
yeah.
schools, and that was the original plan. And then it wound up, they didn't have enough staff to be able to do that, so they had to, and then with the interim CEO, it just wasn't, it was a bit much for them to tackle. So they had to let the grant go. They can still apply again next year, and I would imagine they will. And then we looked at capacity of how many students they could actually fit at the club, because they're also limited with size, but, yeah, figure it out.
Yeah,
It is a great service that the kids do get that extra support.
right. No,
For
yeah, I'm
homework.
not disagreeing with that at all. The other question I had is, so the Boys and Girls Club of the Northwoods is actually 2 locations. It's got the Anigo location and it's got the Freilater location. How do we know that our funds and efforts are staying in Anigo?
So that is a good question. I don't want to speak to this as an expert, but we do have a board meeting either this Wednesday or next Wednesday, and I can ask that question for sure. But we have a financial report that they share out at each meeting, and it talks about the clubs individually. So I do feel that it is tracked to know what funds are being spent at which club. That's a good question, though.
Okay. Yeah, is
But
it,
I will follow up and find out for certain.
would it be possible to make number 4, say the Boys and Girls Club of Langley County will receive $27,000 from the USDA for services provided?
I don't know that there is a Boys and Girls Club of Langley County.
Yeah.
There is.
There is?
Yeah.
I thought it was all just the Boys and Girls Club of the
Yeah, it's
Northwoods.
all Northwoods.
Okay. I know it's differentiated, like, on their website. Even though it's the Boys and Girls, it's no different than a corporation having a,
Mhm.
Yeah.
a corporation, then you have some corporations underneath it.
And I feel like it's all just one, but I can ask because they wrote up the memorandum of understanding for us.
Okay.
They created that.
Yeah, if you would, please.
Yeah, I sure will.
Hey, just to get back to the busing thing.
I whispered in to Andy, maybe on that day that the busing gets counted, that we counted in the evening when all the kids from the elementary schools are being dropped off at the Boys and Girls Club.
There you go.
So we'll have
And
extra
can you
rec-
count those? I mean,
we have
they're
extra
worth,
rec-
it's
well,
worth
there are
looking into it.
kids. If they rode that bus that day
It
at
is
that
worth
time.
counting or looking into.
Yeah,
Let
because
me-
back in the day, I know there were superintendents when homeschool was starting, they would, on that particular day, that I never did this, but they would have the homeschoolers come in on a special day to visit their school.
And
have
we'll bus
lu-
you home.
and have lunch with you, but they would be bussed in or whatever, but they would get all the homeschoolers in there on that day to ride the bus.
Well, there you go, pull them into.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So there are tricks that can be done, but I
it,
never did
it
it.
adds up because, I
Well, yeah,
forget what the
everything-
number is, but we do get some money.
And maybe there's special ruling at the WIA
Yeah.
that, or not that, but at
Yeah.
DPI that
At
says
DPI.
it's the morning ride, so whatever it is.
I-
I don't
Does it say the
know.
morning ride?
No,
I don't know.
no, we don't know what the rules are.
I
I
was
just know that-
Googling it a while ago when you mentioned it to see. or
When
looking
we
it up on
talked about
DPI.
it last year, or maybe it was the year before, Tim just said, yeah, it's one particular day, you
Yeah.
count that number.
Yeah.
Did you know that? I didn't either. I've never heard that ever in all my years.
I just heard third Friday count.
Right.
Yeah,
Um,
but,
And
This
I
is
don't
for-
think it
this
is
is-
the
this is
third
different.
Friday.
Transportation.
but
Yeah, I
it
don't
is,
know.
there's a transportation day where the kids who ride that day are what counted for what you get from the state.
This
Wow.
is,
And I don't
well,
know the date.
we know this, that for, we would like to count kids for free and reduced lunch, right? The more kids we can count, the better off we are, but that is kind of self-counted now, right? Because they're
Uh-huh.
signed up for other programs.
Right, and
we
they
get to
pull
count
it,
them that
they
way.
pull that data. There's not as much of, schools handling that information. They automatically pull that.
Yeah.
And upload it into WiseDash, and they're trying to streamline more of those things, so, which should be better.
Is there anything else anybody wanted to bring up?
Well, at, Kelly, at the, let's see, it was the first meeting, policy. And I'm not sure, Angie would have heard it. I'm not sure if Andy
I
had
don't think
already.
I went home for supper.
Yeah, I know. But,
We gotta make this quick because the pie's in the oven, you know, I went home,
and
made that pie.
I told my wife we'd be done by 10 too, so. Anyway, because my supper's waiting.
Oh, yeah.
So anyway, we have a number of people who are leaving the finance department. And Kelly's been in contact with CISA 5, and their expertise down there has to do with school finance and helping small schools originally, that where a superintendent was there, but they needed help in dealing with finance, would contract with CISA 5. They also provide services that when you hire people that have never worked within a school accounting system, they will come and train them. So Kelly and I had talked about that, and so I'll just turn it over to her because that, in our discussion last week, looked like probably the best option to go. So if,
Yeah,
I'll
so
just turn it over to you.
some of the things that we're finding is looking at just best practice in general, such as paper, the amount of paper, or just the chart of accounts in general, looking at all of the changes that have happened with DPI as far as what your codes need to be, how they need to be updated, and all those things. A lot of things are being updated with DPI and our reporting. Where back in the previous years, you would have to do a lot of submitting. They've changed the portals and things like that. So now your financial software actually gets it goes through an API and goes through Wise Data Finance now, so your codes have to match, if not, you get errors. So that's another, one of the pieces we're looking at, just really going through the finance department with a fine-tooth comb as to what roles do we need, who does what role, how do we work more efficiently, how do we work to make sure that all of our tasks that we're doing are up to where they need to be with DPI. So it's a perfect time to do that when you are going through some retirements and some shifting, because we've had some people move to different areas within the district. So I have been in contact with them, not only about training our new people, but really looking at how do we save money and work more efficiently, not only, like I said, through our systems as far as everything being paper, or even just the processes that we have in place, and looking at what does everybody do and how do we make that the most efficient that it possibly can. Because the roles have changed so much. Even since I think Tim was here, it had gone down from 5 or something like that down, and I knew there were some positions that were moved. So with the shifting, we're just going to look at how do we match everyone's talents and strengths with what needs to be done in the business office, what can go, what can be shifted, and then what are their professional recommendations along with training. So we're looking at interviewing and filling those positions, and then looking for how we're going to streamline those processes. And so that'll all depend too on who we hire, if there are candidates, and as to how we move forward. But there are several districts that do contract roles with CISA 5, such as payroll, or different different pieces such as grant claiming, or things like that too. So there's a lot of different options that we can go down that road. Obviously, being the most cost effective as possible. You're not going to contract something out that's going to be way more expensive than training someone. But we all know with turnover also, we lose money and efficiencies with that too. So your wheels are turning again.
Yeah, have you talked to Hillary at CISA 9 about this?
Yes, so Hillary, Mike from CISA 5, and then I think they have another person from CISA 8, and they're all meeting Wednesday, and then we are going to meet on Friday to see what the best option is going to be, because I think Hillary is only a person of 1 there.
No, she's a person of more than 1.
Does she, do they?
We hired a new person to do exactly what you're talking
Perfect.
about, and I think they even want to hire another one.
Well, that would be great, because we need it.
Are
So-
they experienced?
Is Hillary experienced?
No, not
The
Hillary.
person they
I know
hired?
Hillary is, the
Well-
people that they've hired.
We don't have that policy that I get to see what their
Well,
application
maybe
was.
you should ask CISA 9 to have that policy.
Maybe.
Yes.
It's not working that well here, so I don't know that. Yeah, you'd have to talk to Hillary about that.
So Mike, Hillary, and then whoever the person, I can't remember the person's name from CISA 8, they're all working together to find out what would be the best option for us and what each of them offer. So I know CISA 5 specializes in the business services department.
Yeah.
Several districts use them, and for a variety of issues. One of the ones that I talked to, a colleague, a business manager, was coming into a district that had invoices that haven't been dealt with in
Bank recs.
Yeah, bank recs weren't finished, Wise grants wasn't done, claims weren't finished, accounts were a mess. They couldn't even file their aid certification that was due on September 1st. CISA 5 is coming in, going through everything, helping them get through it.
I think CISA 9 just did this for a district last year. Yeah.
Wonderful.
But, yeah, really, that's your job to go ahead and
Yeah.
interview these different ones, and different CISAs specialize in different things,
They
I
do.
understand that.
Exactly.
But I think all CISAs are gonna offer this service because there's so
I
many.
hope so. There's a huge need.
Yep.
Yeah, there's so
Huge.
many small districts that cannot hire business people
afford it.
that,
Yeah.
Yeah.
this is all gonna change in the next couple of years.
Yeah, it'd be wonderful if they could expand on that because, even just the accounting positions within the business office, there's so many different pieces that come into play. So if they could just even specialize in certain pieces that they could.
Well, they've always done the, what's the Medicare thing, reimbursement thing?
Yeah.
Yep, they've always done that for districts, but we do our own. Yeah.
Yeah. So Hillary is in the loop. Mike, Hillary, and then the CISA 8 rep, they're going through what some solutions could be, and then I asked them if we could please meet on Thursday or Friday. They said next week. I said, well, if you could do Thursday or Friday, that'd be better. Because we're working on a timeline.
Yeah.
So yes, we haven't forgotten about CISA 9. And then we will look at what each of their capacity is, because I don't know what CISA 9's capacity is as far as what they have available for service. Because it was just like, I remember when I was a principal in Crestwood, and we needed a ton of literacy work. And at that time, they only had Casey Gretzner, which she was amazing, but we booked all of her days, and I was like, we need more. We have, tons of work that needed to be done, and so we had to go to we had to expand to a different CISA because they didn't have they didn't have the extra people. Now they've grown significantly
Yes.
in that area.
And
but-
that may be the same case with
Yes.
business services. I think all CISAs are gonna grow
Mhm.
exponentially.
I hope so, because the business service, even just, I don't want to, even just,
I told her 8.
Okay.
Just relax.
just even thinking
But the
about,
pie is getting done.
right, but even just thinking about administrative assistants that do WISE data or do special ed reporting, like, we have a lot of turnover in districts in those areas, and, it's definitely a need to have that onboarding, because you only have one person generally in a district who does those things. And when they leave, you generally don't get people who have worked in a school district before. And they might have a administrative assistant experience, but the systems in education in K-12 are very different. Same with accounting. You can be in the private sector, fine and dandy, but when you come over to the K-12 system, it's significantly different with codes, fiscal year, cash flow, all of it. So, yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, that sounds great. We're gonna meet with them.
Okay, anything else for the good of the group? Hearing none. We are adjourned. I will do